So this is my spoiler review for Deadpool Wolverine. So if you haven't seen the movie, don't watch this video. I'm going to spoil some of the cameos. So, and I'll put in the title for the movie. This is a spoiler review. So if you don't want to know about any of the cameos, any story points, don't watch this video. Alright, so I thought this was a great movie. I love this movie. I thought it was a lot of fun. I love the first Deadpool movie. I thought the second one was fun, but not as good as the first one. And I'm a big Wolverine fan. I love you, Shackman, as well. So let me start off with the negatives. This movie isn't perfect. Like, I think some of the humor doesn't always land. Most of the humor does. I would say about 90% of the humor really works in this movie. Like, a lot of this movie is funny. There's this little moments here or there where I feel like, okay, not every joke lands. And when it comes to the actors who play Casanova, let me say this, I think she's a fun villain. I really loved her character. But I do wish we got a little bit more of her character when it comes to like the Professor X connection, and just I want a little bit more of her character. Overall, I think she's a solid villain, and overall, I thought she was just a very fun villain. When she does come off like crazy, fun, but scary at the same time. And I liked the backstory where you do get references towards Professor X. I just think I wish I would have gotten a little bit more there. But overall, I thought she was a really solid villain. And that's really about the negatives I have. This movie is just, like I said, it's a lot of fun. I think Ryan Reynolds is great as Deadpool. A lot of jokes land. The chemistry between him and Hugh Jackman is great in this movie. Like when you watch any of these two guys, it really just come off like they're really great buddies. And I just love the fact you have this. It's like a buddy movie where you have it's a movie about friendship, where you have like the straight guy Wolverine and you have the Deadpool guy who crack jokes all the time. And it's just, I love how Wolverine gets just annoyed by his character for most of the movie, so it creates for some really great comedy and just some heartful moments between the two characters too that I love. Because that's the thing I also love about Deadpool movies is they always have like heart to them too, besides the comedy. And I love like this Wolverine's emotional arc where you find out about his backstory that he was out one day, the humans came and killed his X-Men, which I thought was a great emotional backstory, and it just made you really invested in this Wolverine. And Hugh Jackman does a great job playing like a different Wolverine. We gets to do some different stuff in this movie, and the fact this is an all-weighted Wolverine, which we've only seen that in Logan. Like I know the unweighted cut of the Wolverine, was released physically. That movie has two cuts. We had the PG-13 cut released in theaters, and then an unweighted of this. And but when it comes to like an all-weighted movie, there's really only been Logan, and then Deadpool makes a joke about that in the movie, which I loved. And the meta jokes all landed for me. I love the fact they even kind of made fun of how the MCU's been on a kind of decline lately when it's been very for hit with the movies and TV shows. I love how Deadpool's like gets into this MCU world, and I love this. I love his emotional backstory. I mean, not his backstory. Excuse me. I love the story that they give Deadpool in this. Which is why I said. Which is why I was talking about how Deadpool movies always have heart to them too. Like I love his storyline this way. He goes to the sacred timeline, talks to Happy Hogan to get recruited by the Avengers. I love that little beat there where his whole arc in this movie is him wanting to feel important, wanting to matter, be part of something great. I love that whole story arc in this movie. It's great to see also the character Vanessa back because I think Deadpool and Vanessa to me is one of my favorite love stories in comic book movies. That's why the original is still my favorite because that the love story in that first movie about two messed up people and the fact that his character had like cancer or something like that in the first Deadpool movie. There's just some. I feel like that story just had the most emotional like beat to it, and I think these two just have great chemistry where you really want them to stay together. These two characters. So to me, it's one of my favorite love stories in a comic book movie. So it was great to see these characters from the first two Deadpool movies when it comes to like Colossus, Mega Sonic Tina Warhead, her girlfriend, the taxi driver, Peter from Deadpool 2. You also have one of the other X Force characters in this from that team that killed off and he saved Shadow Star. Yeah, that was a Shadow Star. So it was great to see like the cast from Deadpool too. They do make a reference to Cable in this movie. Since it picks up from him using a time device at the end of Deadpool 2. That was a great way to kind of tie that. I love the fact of tying that in with the ending of Deadpool 2. And it was great to see like this TVA that's kind of like working because this does take place after Loki season 2. I know some people wanted to like see Loki or more kind of a connection to those shows. And the thing with me is that I feel like you're gonna see Loki in the next two Avengers movies. I feel like that's where he's gonna play like a big role. And I love the idea of this being like a you see a Cessna TVA that's still kind of like trying to do it the old ways because the a big reason where you can tell this takes place after season 2 of Loki is the fact that in season 2 of Loki they stop pruning timelines. When Loki like becomes a this more powerful god at the end of season 2, he's basically sitting on a stone to keep all the timelines alive. Like they stop pruning timelines after season 2. So I love the fact you have this little Cessna that's trying to like go this guy who wants to move up and he like to try and go back. He's trying to like do it the old way they did in season 1 of Loki, which is just like a waste of timelines. And he's talking about how they stopped doing that, and the TVA doesn't know about this small assassin that's like doing this. So I love how they fit the TVA into this movie, and there's some cameos in this movie. So this is where the spoiler is going to be like I always spoil the Happy Hogan one, but there's some big cameos in this movie. So stop the video now if you don't want to know the cameos in this movie. The first one is X-23, which was revealed in the final trailer. Which I don't really count that as a spoiler because she was shown in an officially released trailer. But it was great to see her in this movie. Like her and Hugh Jackman still have good chemistry. I think that campfire scene is really great when it comes to that emotional moment where she talks about Wolverine, tells her what happened to his X-Men, and he's not the hero people think he is, and how she has that line that you won't, you won't the hero like Ho Wolverine, Ho Logan. So I thought that was a great emotional moment, and he still have this great chemistry. It was just great to see those two characters together again. I will say this for Logan fans. I'll say this: they don't mess with that. This is a different Wolverine, so I love how they handled that. But there is a really funny joke at the beginning of the movie where you have Wolverine and it starts out with him going to Logan's grave from Logan, and him using Logan's bones as the adamantium, killing some TVA agents, which I thought was really funny. I mean, I do like the fact they don't bring that Wolverine back. That Wolverine's dead. So I like the fact they, kept him dead, and I just thought it was really funny and just screwed up, but in a funny way. How he like goes to Logan's grave and using Logan's bones to like kill T-Bases. I thought that was really funny to see. And the accent's great in this movie. It has a great soundtrack too. There's a lot of great songs in this movie that drop. But when it comes to the cameos, so you had X-23, you had Jennifer Garner, who was already confirmed to be coming back as Electro before the movie came out. And I'll say this, when it comes to I wasn't really excited when I heard that she was going to be back as Electro because the Daredevil movie, Maverick Daredevil movie, I thought that was terrible. The director's cut is better of that movie, but no matter what cut I watched of that movie, I don't think neither cut is great. And I didn't really like the Electro movie. Like, overall, I just didn't think she was very good in the role. I will say this. I liked her better as a character in this movie than I did in her own movie and in a Daredevil movie. I don't know why, but I just found her performance to be better in this movie than in those two movies. So I'll say that. She did work for me better as a character in this movie. Then you had Channing Tatum as Gambit was great to see. Because he was originally going to do a Gambit movie with Fox, and that movie got canned. I know he talked about in interviews how he was, it sucked that happened because he was really excited to play the character. He seemed like he was a fan of the character. Like I say, he does a great job in this movie. Like, to me, this is Gambit. Like, he nails the accent. He has that charm about the character. And I love the fact he has his Gambit has a costume from like the 90s anime series where he has like the Gambit costume. It looks really cool. I love how they did his powers in this movie. He has the staff. And he got the accent down too, because Gambit has a very specific Cajun accent. And I think he did a great job there. And I also love the jokes about with Deadpool where he's like, where he makes fun of the fact he can't understand Gambit sometimes in this movie with how he talks with that Cajun accent. which I thought was really funny. And I just think Channing Tatum just had a lot of charm to character. Like watching this, I was like, man, I would have loved to have seen this Gambit movie. Because to me, this is Gambit. I was like, he nailed the character. And to me, this makes me want to see him as Gambit more after this. To me this was better than X Men Origins Wolverine version. It was no offense to, I think the actor's name was Taylor Kiss, the actor who played Gambit in X Men Origins Wolverine. Like I didn't think he was bad anymore. Like he was okay, but I felt like that character felt misplaced in a Origins Wolverine movie, and just overall, I just felt like this Channing Tatum nailed the character more. This really felt more like the character from the comics when it comes to costume look, the accent, and everything. So I think he did just a great job as Gambit. And then you had Chris Evans as Johnny Storm, which I love seeing him as back as Johnny Storm because I talked in my videos how I don't like any of the Fox Fantastic Four movies. I think they've all been crap. But I always say this: the two positives out of all those Fantastic Four movies, if you want to count the low budget one too, that was ever released in theaters, is that Chris Evans and Michael Chiklis were the only casting decisions that I felt like Fox nailed. Like I didn't like the whole Wub. I didn't like how the thing looked in the Tim Story Fantastic Four movies, where it just was a guy in a rubber suit. It just looked personally for me really fake. But Michael Chiklis nailed the character when it came to casting, and Chris Evans to me nailed Johnny Storm. Like if there was any cast members I want to see back, him and Michael Chiklis would be the only cast members I would want to see back from the Tim Story movies because I feel like they nailed the character's personality. So Chris Evans to me, he was fantastic as Johnny Storm in this movie, and how his character dies, I thought was wow, that was really gruesome. So I thought he was great in this movie as Johnny Storm. Like to me, he was the best part of those Tim Story ones, along with Michael Chiklis. So it was great to see him as Johnny Storm. And then the last one is this cameo was one that I was like the one that I was excited about when I saw it when I was watching the movie, and that is Wesley Snipes as Blade. Like to me, I love those first two Blade movies. They're some of my favorite all-weighted movies, some of my favorite vampire movies, some of my favorite Marvel movies. And he's great in this movie. He still has that badassery about his character, and I love the fact they made fun of the fact that him and Ryan Reynolds didn't really get along on Blade Trinity. Like that movie was a mess production wise, and that's a terrible movie. And the characters like Ryan Reynolds played a character called Hannibal King, who is from the comics. And even in the movie, the characters like Blade was annoyed by his character in the movie, and from what I heard, the actors didn't really get along on set. And apparently, Ryan Reynolds caught up Wesley Snipes, and I'm glad they worked out whatever was going on back then. You heard a bunch of stories about the production of that movie, Blade Trinity, and so it's good to hear that they kind of like passed things up. And I love the fact they just made a joke about that, where when Blade comes in, Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool is like, yeah, we never really got, something about we never really got along with something like that. They make a joke about that, so I love that joke. And I love the line with Blade later on where he has a some people always trying to escape uphill, which was to me a great, which was like one of the funniest and one of my favorite lines in the original Blade movie where he says that when he's about to kill the main bad guy, Deacon Frost. So I love that little callback. I love the fact you have a line in this movie where Wesley Snipes Blade is like saying he's the one and only Blade still. Is true, he's the one and only Blade still. If hopefully the Monster Elite Blade movie happens at some point. But right now he is the one and only Blade, and for me he's still great in the world. Like I was like, damn, he still has it. But it was great to see him. He was the one that I love seeing the most because I'm a big Blade fan. Like I said, I love those first two movies so much, and it's one. He's one of those characters, and again, when you just feel like, oh man, when you think of Blade, you think of Wesley Snipes. He's just one of those casting decisions that just nailed the character, and it's like just great. It's always great to see him back in the role. But yeah, I thought all the cameos were great. I also love the fact that all the cameos felt like like the big ones felt like they mattered to the story. They were there for a purpose. Because, I would say one of the negatives about the Flash movie when it came to their multiverse stuff is that the ending of the Flash movie is that I felt like they just did cameos for the sake of cameos. And I know Sean Levy, the director of this movie, talked about how he wanted to have at least most of the characters feel like they matter, like they play some role into the story and not just there. I feel like this movie did a pretty great job of like having cameos here, but having most of them feel like okay, they're important to the story. They're not there for the sake of there. We do see the Juggernaut from X Men: The Last Stand, but it's not the actor; it's a different actor playing that version of Juggernaut. And I don't I think that version of Juggernaut was awful. I don't like I prefer the way the Juggernaut looks in Deadpool 2, all big and like I know he was CGI. I think Ryan Reynolds did the voice, but to me, that's what Juggernaut is. He's a big dude. And no offense to the costume from X Men: The Last Stand, I still think it looks stupid. Like I'm just not a fan of this. I'm not a fan of just the way Juggernaut looked in X Men: The Last Stand. The costume looked really dumb to me. It still looks dumb to me in this movie. I mean, it was great to see that version. It sucks we couldn't see that it was no actor back. But yeah, still not a fan of the way Juggernaut looked from X Men: The Last Stand personally. And then you do see Azazel from X Men First Class. Doesn't really do anything. And then I noticed you do see Toad, Lady Deathstroke from X2 United, which still as kind of they don't really do anything either. And then it was great to see Prowler back. I love seeing the actor play Prowler from X2 and X Men: The Last Stand. It was great to see him back. I thought he was great in this movie too. The fact that he actually has a suit now in this movie, I really loved also. But yeah, a lot of the humor worked for me. There is a post-credit scene, so stick around. It kind of ties into Johnny Storm's character, his death early in the movie when it comes to Chris Evans, Johnny Storm, which I thought was a funny post-credit scene. It doesn't set up anything for the future, but I thought it was a nice, funny callback to a joke earlier in the movie. And also, stay during the credits of the movie. I thought this was really cool. During the credits, they have like a clip show that's showing behind-the-scenes stuff from all the Fox Marvel movies. And that includes the Tim Story Fantastic Four movies, the 2015 Fantastic Four reboot, all the X-Men movies, the 3 solo Wolverine movies, the first 2 Deadpool movies, the Daredevil movie, and the Electro movie, which was great. Because, Fox they do have a legacy making some Marvel movies. Were they always very good? No, but I was happy they included all the Fox movies, including the tail ones. Like, look, X-Men Origins Wolverine, I think is awful. I don't, the Electro movie I think is awful. All the Fantastic Four movies I don't think are very good at all. But I'm glad they included them because at the end of the day they're part of the Fox legacy. So it was a nice little tribute to seeing the behind the scenes from even the bad Fox movies. So it was great. A little stay on the credits because I think it's just awesome to see that. Soundtrack is great. There's a lot of great songs in this movie, like I said. So overall, I thought this was just a great movie, a lot of fun. I would say the original Deadpool is still my favorite out of the trilogy because that love story in the original movie, when it comes to Vanessa and Deadpool, about 2 messed up people coming together, and and Ryan Reynolds character Deadpool like having cancer in that movie, if I remember correctly. I just think that movie, just to me personally, still had the best emotional storyline. But I thought this had a lot of heart. This movie, and I'll put it in second place. Like I prefer this over Deadpool 2. I still enjoy Deadpool 2, but I think that movie got a little jokey. And I also think, for me personally, the storyline with the Fire Kid, I didn't really care for that part of the movie personally. I didn't feel like all I invested in that part of the storyline. But I still think it's a fun, solid movie, Deadpool 2. But I'll put this one in second place. But overall, great movie, Deadpool Wolverine. I highly recommend. Go check it out in theaters. To me, you're going to have a great time. And, is the MCU back after this? We'll see. For me, I got to see them deliver a couple of quality movies in a row. But this is a good start. Good start. This is a sign that MCU is getting back on track. So that's my thoughts on Deadpool and Wolverine. Until next time, movie fans.